StrayAllDay.com.
You are now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That's the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of wait for things to happen. We put all this together in one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book. This daily masterclass that you have the privilege to be listening to, it is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is thinking in dimensions. Basically, we're talking about multidimensional thinking. Maybe I'll title it that by the time this comes out. My goal for today's masterclass is to challenge your thought patterns. Maybe not everybody's, but some people's thought patterns. So maybe you can start seeing things in more ways than one. What I found is, especially since all the racial upheaval and unrest and debate and conversation that have been happening in the United States this year, especially leading into what is an election year, and I think is only going to get uglier and nastier and louder as we get closer to that election. And then whatever happens in the election, I think is going to be ugly and nasty no matter who wins. Actually, I don't see things calming down after the election. I think it's only going to get crazier no matter who wins, either side in this upcoming election. If it ends up being the two candidates that we have right now, I see people seeing things in only one or two dimensions. A one-dimensional thinker is a person who sees things as they can only go in one direction. So, like, for example, making money is one-dimensional. You just want to get more money so that you can do the things that you want to do. That's a one-dimensional thought, just as a rough example. A two-dimensional thinker is a person who sees things in black and white, polarizing, good, bad, yes, no. Now, a lot of people who think they are smart are two-dimensional thinkers. They see things on one side or another side, and they want to associate everyone and everything they come across as either on one side or another side. They do not see the nuances in things. They don't understand that there may be information that they are missing. They don't understand that the information that they are given may not be all of the information, and they may not always understand how to assess the information that they have, which are all skills of the multidimensional thinker. So that's what we're going to be talking about here today. And I'm going to explain where this came from and why I'm talking about it as we get into this. So I don't need to give any more background. Let's just get right into the meat and potatoes here. Point number one, today's topic is thinking multidimensionally. When I did the George Floyd episode, which was again late May 2020, multiple people came to me telling me some statistics about, here's what happened more than once. A couple people came to me with some statistics about, hey, here's the number of black people who have been killed while dealing with police. And then they were going to explain with their data, this person who reached out and messaged me or whatever, saying, hey, it shows that a black person is more likely to get struck by lightning than they are to get killed by a police officer. So when you say, in that George Floyd episode, for those of you who remember, I started the episode by saying, if you are not black and you're not a black person living in America, to shut the fuck up and listen. Because I was going to explain some things. And I went on to explain in the intro to that show. I'll come back to that data that people sent me more than once in a moment. I went on to explain that a black person living in America, especially a male, but also females, they believe, not all of them, but many of them believe that dealing with the police, that their lives are not as valuable, that there are certain things that a police officer could get away with them that they would not get away with when it comes to other people. And when something does happen between a black person and a cop, as it's been so sensationalized, we know this, out of proportion to when it happens to anyone else or from any other race, it's caused people to feel a certain way emotionally. It is not logical, it is not rational, but this is the way that certain people feel. And what I explained in that George Floyd episode was that this is the way that people feel. I did not say here are the stats. I did not say here are the facts. I did not say this is how many times it happens. I did not say it happened to this person or that person. I said here is how people feel. That's why people were protesting. That's why people were rioting. And maybe at the point that you're listening to this, maybe it's still going on. It is not because of logic. It is not because of reason. It is because of people's emotions. It's because the media has, for whatever reason, either manipulated or been manipulated into sensationalizing these stories to the point that people think that it happens more often than it does. People think that it's more of a threat to their lives personally, even if it has never happened to them. Not everybody feels this way, but there is a percentage of people who do feel this way. And then you even have people who may not be under the threat. In other words, people who are not even black, living in America, who they feel they need to speak up because they have been convinced that this is as big of a threat as the media has allowed people to believe, some people to believe that it is. And that is what I believe I explained in the George Floyd episode. And I think I'm a pretty articulate guy. I didn't roll out any stats. I didn't say this is how many times that it happened, because that wasn't even the fucking point. The point was, this is how people feel. And as I talked about in the episode on listening, ladies and gentlemen, not listening to me, but listening period, is that since everyone is not as smart as you, you need to understand that sometimes people have ideas and beliefs that are completely irrational. They are not logical. They are not backed up by facts. They are not backed up by data. They are not backed up by any hard information. They cannot prove them in a court of law, but they believe that is what's going on because, again, you see the media, you have the internet, you have a television maybe, you see what's going on. You see how many people are talking about this. You see that if you just went off what was on the news, it would seem like it's happening every day to 10 people a day, even though it's not. But this is the power of the media. This is the power of social media algorithms. They are smarter than any one of us is, and they can make you believe whatever they want you to believe if you pay enough attention to them. And that is what I explained. I didn't go into the algorithms and the media part in the George Floyd episode, but this is what, again, you being as smart as you are, you should understand this in the episode where I talked about listening just a day ago. So when people came to me with this stats, well, why are you saying shut the fuck up and listen? I had some white people say to me, well, Dre, you shouldn't say shut the fuck up and listen because obviously this person wanted to speak. Well, listen, don't tune into a podcast if you want to speak. Okay, you tune into a podcast to listen. All right, there's no back and forth on a podcast unless you're one of the hosts. Okay, so this person was saying, well, why'd you say shut the fuck up and listen? Well, because that's the only choice you got when you listen to a fucking podcast. But anyway, this person was saying, well, this data shows that this is not the case, and this person says this, and you can read this and watch this, and I'm like, well, that's not even the point, first of all. I didn't say that, second of all, and you weren't listening, third of all. So all three of those, and I'm bringing all of that up to say this, because I already talked about listening in yesterday's episode. I never said, just to be clear, I'm just going to reiterate this. Most of you get this. 98% of people who listen to the show did not reach out to me with any stats. But for the couple people who did, and this was not only from the episode, it was also a couple posts that I did on Facebook that week. One of them called Dear White People, another one called Dear Black People. I sent those out as emails as well. And I got the similar response from a couple of different people. They're all white, all of them male. And you can draw your own conclusions for why that is, or if there is none, just coincidence. I never said that black people were being targeted by cops. I don't believe that. I'm a black man. I don't believe I'm being targeted by cops. I never said police brutality was the biggest issue for black people. I definitely didn't say that. I sent out an email saying damn near the exact opposite. If you read the email, you saw that I said that. What I did say, as I just said a moment ago, some people feel that way emotionally, irrationally, and illogically. And guess what? People have a right to be emotional, irrational, and illogical. Even though you are not, even though you're smarter than them, even though you can see things that they can't see, even though you have data that they obviously have not read, even though you have stats that they obviously don't know about, they still have the right to feel how the fuck they feel. Even if you think it makes no sense whatsoever, they still have a right to feel that way. And you as a listener, when you have good listening skills, you understand these things. And I wouldn't even have to explain them to. And when I say you, I'm not saying everyone who's listening to this, but the people who need it. And all of you know that there are some people who need this. And it's not just about this situation. I'm just using this as a canvas on which to paint this point. It is wrong to tell other people that they're wrong to feel how they feel. Let me say that again. It is wrong to tell other people that they don't have a right to feel how they feel, even if you have data that tells them that their feelings are invalid. You try to invalidate another person's feelings. Let me ask you a question. Has that ever worked? Have you ever invalidated another person's feelings by giving them logic and reason that tells them why they shouldn't feel how they feel? The person's really nervous and you say, hey, don't be nervous. Does that work? I've never seen it work. I've tried it. It didn't work. I've seen other people try it on other people. I've never seen that actually do anything. So if you think telling another person how they feel is wrong because you have data, logical data, and because you're not emotional, listen, you can think that and think however that you want to think, but you're never going to change anybody's mind by telling them they're wrong for having the perception that they have. Now, you can slowly bring them to the other side, but you never ever start off by telling them that they're wrong. You start off by telling the person that they're wrong, you've already created an enemy, and that conversation is not going anywhere. I thought I cleared that up in the anti-people skills episode 300 episodes ago, but obviously I didn't. So I want to make sure I'm coming back to it here today. And I posted something on Instagram in probably mid to late June 2020 where I was talking about, I didn't want to hear a lot of people's sob stories about race. And some people got mad at me about that. Some black people got mad at me about that, actually. It was mostly black people who got mad. A bunch of people liked it. And maybe, again, same thing, maybe 1% of the people who saw the post had something to say that, and they didn't like what I said for whatever reason. And this is fine. And this is something that I want to make sure all you pay attention to is when you put something out there that 99% of people are going to like it or be fine with it or have no reaction, the 1% of people who have something negative to say about it, don't allow that outsized 1%, that vocal minority, to drown out the overall picture of whatever the response was to whatever it is that you're doing. If somebody's negative, you got a hater, you sold a product, you sold 1,000 copies, but one person returned it and said you were a scam. All right, make sure you're looking at things in the big picture. Again, you may feel bad because of that one person who called you a scam, but once you calm down from your emotions, look at the big picture in a logical way, or get it from somebody whom you trust that you'll listen to once you calm down, and they'll be able to show you, what the actual number is or what the actual information is. But anyway, what I was saying is I made this post on Instagram the day after I saw this guy named Ryan Clark, who used to play in the NFL. He works for ESPN now, and his son had posted a story on Twitter. And the story was basically, I'm just paraphrasing the entire story. The son is a college student on the football team because Ryan Clark used to play in the NFL, so his son's a football player. And I believe it's Arizona or Arizona State that Ryan Clark's son plays football at. So he was at his college and he was out one night and he wanted to get some food. Him and a couple of his friends who are also football players wanted some food from a local Whataburger restaurant. Now the Whataburger has a drive-thru. Challenge is that this kid and his friends didn't have a car. So they went to the drive-thru window, and the drive-thru was the only thing open. You couldn't go in the store, only the drive-thru. So they walked up to a car of a woman who was about to go through the drive-thru, and they asked the woman, hey, if we give you the money, could you get us some food? And the woman declined. She said, long and short, she said no. Long and short of it, she said no. Then they went to the car behind her, and there was a white guy, and they asked him, and he said yes. He took the money, and he ended up getting the kids their food. There was no problem whatsoever. The issue happened when the woman, the first woman that they had approached in the car, when she got up to the drive-thru window, she, according to this kid's story, she told the drive-thru people that she had been harassed by these kids. And the drive-thru people were sympathetic to her story that she had been harassed, and they comped her meal, gave her food for free. And when she got to the window, and then when she drove off, she rolled her window down and she used the N-word in a slanderous way multiple times towards these young black kids. And then she drove off and the whole thing was over. The kids got their food. Nothing else happened. No police were involved. There was no actual altercations, just a woman saying the N-word multiple times, according to the story. She drove off. This kid wrote this story and posted it on Twitter. And this became like a big news story. I mean, ESPN, basically their whole front page was dominated by this for about 24 hours. You know how the news cycle is these days. And Ryan Clark, who is this kid's father, when he came on ESPN the very next day, first of all, let me back up. When I saw that story on Twitter, it was, a lot of people were retweeting it. I don't follow Ryan Clark or this kid or not much football related stuff, period. But the story found its way to me because it started making its rounds on social media. And I retweeted the story with my own comment. And I said, listen, somebody says something nasty to you, which is messed up, but people are going to say way nastier things to you than that. And it's going to be way nastier altercations than somebody yelling something at you and driving away. They basically a drive-by trash talking. All right, that's what I consider that. There's a drive, you know how they have drive-by shootings? Or they didn't shoot you, they just talked some shit to you and drove by. That's what happened. And I said, you need to toughen up. And nobody responded to it. The kid didn't say anything, whatever. I wasn't expecting him to, but I just wanted to, that was my 2 cents on the story. The next day on ESPN made this a big thing. They made a whole story out of this whole thing. Obviously, they got all their talking heads to come talk about it and how terrible it is and how we need to change and this and that. And of course, they got some white people to co-sign it to make sure they're being balanced. Okay, fine. Ryan Clark the father of this kid, he came on ESPN as, they asked him what he felt about it. And he goes on to explain, and he had actually tweeted as in response to the story, hey, I'm sorry, son, I failed you. I didn't educate you enough on how the world sees you and how they see you. And I'm just glad that you're alive. And that really didn't sit well with me. I didn't really like the way that he worded that. And I didn't like the way that it got paraded around social media as if like being a black person in America just means who is the world? The world doesn't, everybody in the world doesn't feel that way. Everybody in the world doesn't talk that way. I mean, just looking at that situation alone, this kid, he went to the drive-thru, right? And he walked up to the woman and she said no. And then she ended up calling him an N-word later on when she was at a safe distance. And then he went to the car right after that. And the guy said yes, took their money, got their food, gave it to him, and there was no problem whatsoever. So right there, half of the people that they dealt with, there was no problem whatsoever. And they were both white. So why is it the world sees you this way or they see you this way? It's not a certain group of people and it's not the whole world. Right there was only a 50% failure rate, I guess we can say. And just by the way, on a side note, if I'm at a drive-thru at whatever time of night to the point that the Whataburger is not open, you can only go through the drive-thru, listen, don't approach my fucking car. I don't care what color you are. I'm black and I think I can physically defend myself. Don't approach my car when I'm at a drive-thru. I'm going to take to that defensively in a way that I may let you know before you even get close. Don't come close to this car. I'm not into that. All right. And I'm not a white woman. I'm a black man. I don't want my car approached. So if that woman felt like she was being harassed or she felt threatened by the fact that they had approached, she had a right to that. Now, did she need to say what she said? No. Did you have a right to say it? I mean, it's not a crime. I told y'all racism is not a crime in what episode was that I said that? That was episode number 1378, racism is legal. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying she should have said it. But I mean, she didn't break the law by saying it. And did she have a right to feel like she had been harassed when some young black kids walk up to some white woman's car at a Whataburger at 10:30 at night? I would say actually yes. However, I'm not defending what she said. Okay, and this goes right into the point that I'm making here today. So please keep listening as I explain what I mean here. Anyway, Ryan Clark, as I go back to the story, this is the father of the kid who got called the N-word by this white woman, and he went and posted the story, and of course he's getting all the sympathy on Twitter the next day, and this becomes an ESPN headline. Ryan Clark's on there talking about it, and as he's explaining how he felt and this thing and that thing, this guy, now he breaks down crying, talking about, man, I can only imagine if something had happened to him and if he had lost his life, I would know, basically saying how he would feel devastated if something had happened to his son. He felt like maybe he had failed his son because he hadn't properly educated his son as to how things are in the world. I didn't like that at all for several reasons. First of all, I mean, Ryan Clark is, again, this is his emotions. He's fine to feel however he wants to feel. What I didn't like was the fact that this is on ESPN, so this is getting broadcast to the world. And even to his own child. And he's the father, so he could do whatever the hell he wants with his kid. But they put this on TV, which gives me a license to say something about it. He is indoctrinating a whole lot of impressionable people on this whole concept that this idea that black people, for whatever reason, we should feel threatened just living in America anytime we see a white face. And I really do not believe I don't believe that to be the case. I don't think that is the reality of it. I think this is way outsized from what is actually happening. And again, media companies have manipulated a lot of impressionable people into believing this is just what it is. Like, okay, if you're black and you come across a white person, there's a pretty good chance you're gonna be racist. There's a chance something could happen. There's a chance you might get drive-by trash talk. There's a chance if a cop comes around, you might end up dying. Are these all things all possible? Absolutely, they're possible. But do we need to walk around life on eggshells or feeling like we're in fear or feeling like we need to scream some hashtag in front of every white person that we come across? No, I don't think that. And that's why I made the post that I made on Instagram in mid-June 2020. It was a meme post where I said, I don't want to hear people's racism sob stories from 3 weeks ago or 3 years ago, because I felt like it was not productive. All it was doing was enticing people to give you their sympathy, like, oh man, that's so terrible. We really need to change. These people are horrible. And I'm like, what is this actually doing? It's not actually doing anything. And that's exactly what I wrote on that post. And again, 99% of people who came across it, more than 99%, liked it or left a positive comment, and there were a few people who didn't like it, and which is perfectly fine. The whole point that I'm making here is we're still on point number one here today. The topic is thinking multidimensionally Again, people are free to feel however they want to feel, but once you start expressing it publicly, now you're putting yourself in a position to be scrutinized and to have somebody say something about it. Again, they don't have to say anything negative. As long as they heard what you said and they got it right, exactly what you're putting out there, they have a right to leave a comment to it. And what I want to be clear here when I'm talking about being a multidimensional thinker is what we're going to get to in point number 2 as I explain why I'm giving all this background. So let's move on to point number 2. The topic here today, once again, is being a multidimensional thinker. Number 2, most people are, as I said, 1 or 2 dimensional thinkers. They look at one side of something or one side of an idea, and they're like the LA Lakers. Now, why I'm bringing up the LA Lakers is there was a post that came out maybe a week or so into the whole George Floyd flare-up that happened in the USA, where each player on the Lakers, and a basketball team is like, 10 to 15 people, somewhere around that number. Each player on the Lakers put up the exact same post on their Instagram one day, and it said, if y'all ain't with us, we ain't with y'all. Now, this is the way most people think, the way the LA Lakers made that post. And when the Lakers made this post, of course, ESPN, they amplified it. And a whole bunch of influential sports journalists who I do follow, there specifically for either for basketball or just sports in general, they amplified this, and people were, leaving a black fist emoji to support it. And I was looking at it like, I didn't say anything, but I'm thinking to myself, well, with y'all, with what? What are you doing? Where are you going? What is your plan? What are you doing? Are y'all talking about the basketball team? What exactly with us doing what? And this whole thing, all these gestures and these charades and these things that look good and play well on social media, and they're being amplified by people who work for these companies. They ain't got no choice but to say anything else, because we saw what happened to Drew Brees when he dared offer an opinion that goes against the grain. Nobody wants to say anything that goes against the grain. If you're famous enough, you're going to get destroyed. And most people think like this. There's 1 or 2 dimensions. You're on this side or you're on that side. You're with us or you're against us. You agree with everything we say, or you're canceled and you're not allowed in the circle at all. This type of foolish, shallow thinking is accepted by people who do not possess critical thinking skills. And it saddens me to see it happen at a time when the topic is race. And the topic is, we're talking about people's lives, and we're talking about how this country of America operates, and there's a lot of separationism going on right now. There's a lot of polarization going on right now, and people are making it seem like, okay, well, this is where we are, and this is where we stand, this is where we think, and if you don't go with this, then there's something wrong with you. And this is 1 and 2 dimensional thinking, which a critical thinking person, an intelligent person, or a person who is intelligent as they think they are, doesn't think this way. They're able to see things in multiple dimensions, and they do not allow their emotions to overpower their intelligence. And that's the thing that I've seen happen way too much recently. Again, I'm not talking specifically about Ryan Clark, because that was his son, so he felt like, I don't really get the crying part, like nothing actually happened. So I guess he was imagining, well, what if let's say the woman had a gun, or the woman called the cops and the cops came, and I don't know, the cops end up killing one of these kids. And this is the thing that really, it annoys me to hear people talking like this. He didn't say that. Let me be clear. He did not say that. But I am assuming, so I could be completely wrong, but I'm assuming that the reason that he started crying is because he started thinking about, well, what if, let's say the woman had a gun and she hates black people. Obviously, she has some kind of type of animus since she used the N-word on those kids. Maybe she was just doing it to be funny. Who the hell knows? We don't know. We can't read the woman's mind. But it's like, well, if she had a gun and she wanted to kill a black person, all right, she could have did it. All right, ain't nothing you as a father could have done to stop it. And if she had called the cops, as long as your son and his friends didn't do anything stupid, as long as they cooperated with whatever the cop asked or whatever the cop wanted, it probably would have been over, and it wouldn't even been a story. Actually, in this climate, it would have been a story. The woman called the cops came, and the kid would have been an even bigger victim. But the whole point of just putting these stories out there as if black people should be afraid, or painting ourselves as victims to the world so that the world is supposed to feel sympathy for us, and shit is working. I can't even hate on the process of what's happening right now, because damn it, it's working. There's a whole bunch of woke white people right now. There are people in other countries who don't know shit about what's going on and never even been to America. They're kneeling before games. They're wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts because the media and a lot of influential people have managed to convince a lot of the world that black people are victims of you tell me. And again, I did a whole episode just explaining this, masterclass number 1524. We are not victims. I never look at myself as a victim. I will never look at myself as a victim. Even if someone does something to me that they weren't supposed to do, if a cop comes to me and tries to slow down my day or get in my way or harass or bother me in some way, as long as I live through the situation, if I tell that story, it's only to tell you how I'm not going to make myself a victim because of it. If a white woman was to roll down her window and use the N-word in my direction, well, she might end up being the victim rather than me being the victim. But hopefully that doesn't happen, so we don't even have to worry about that story. But I'm not a person that looks at myself as a victim, and it really bothers me seeing a bunch of people who have the influence and the power to tell people, hey, how about we stop looking at it this way and look at it this way instead, so we can actually empower ourselves instead of weakening ourselves. Instead, they're making these calls for sympathy. And anyway, what does all this have to do with multidimensional thinking? That's where we didn't get to all of that yet. But the point that I'm making is, yes, it's wrong. What happened to that kid? What the woman said, again, if his story is to be believed, is it possible that it could have got worse if the cops had come around or the woman had, let's say, a man with her, or let's say there was a man that did that. He got out the car and wanted to fight the kid. Is it possible that it could have got worse? Absolutely. But does that mean we need to do like a sympathy victory lap for this kid? No. That is right there, what I just said, is what I call multidimensional thinking. Do I think that Black Lives Matter, the actual question? Of course I believe that. They better matter because I'm black. Now, do I need to post a hashtag or wear a t-shirt? No, because I do not agree with the entirety of their movement. We're going to get to that in a minute. And this right here, what I just said, that is multidimensional thinking. Am I on the other side? No, I'm not on any side. I'm on the side of intelligence. I'm on the side of personal empowerment. I'm on the side of taking care of yourself and doing what you need to do for you, instead of blaming the government, instead of blaming the other, whoever the other happens to be from where you are, instead of blaming some unfortunate circumstance of somebody saying something or doing something towards you that you didn't like. I'm on the side of taking personal control for your own life. And I think you could listen to 2 or 3 episodes of the show and I think you would get that idea. Now, so since you're listening right now, I think you already know that. Let's move on to point number 3, because I'm going to tell you how we can fix this 1 or 2 dimensional thinking. We'll just say 2-dimensional thinking that a lot of people have, especially that has been, this is not a new thing. I just feel like it's been exacerbated by the current climate that we have in the United States. And this is something, as a black person, as a person of influence. I mean, I'm not as famous as LeBron James, but having some influence and being a person who has spoken out on things when it comes to empowering yourself, when it comes to how you can think for yourself, how you can put yourself in a better position, how you can deal with situations, whether they be setbacks or fortunate situations in life. People have asked me to speak on these topics, and when I talk to them, people are listening to them. So this is why I'm talking about these things. But as you can hear, I always want to relate these back to something that is more evergreen than just talking about right now. I'm not a news reporter. I'm not a journalist. I don't want to just be chasing current events. But this one is current enough and important enough, and being who I am as a person, this is something that we need to be addressing. I guess I could have said that at the top, but I think you got that point when I did the George Floyd episode. Let's move on to point number 3. Today's topic is multidimensional thinking. Now, here's where a lot of people who are, let's say, like the LA Lakers, who think like the LA Lakers, or someone who maybe thinks like Ryan Clark, or the people who offered so much sympathy to him and his kid for nothing happening to him. All that happened is a woman wouldn't get his Whataburger. She called him the N-word. Like, that's all, the only thing that happened to him. But he got a ton of sympathy for that. Even Ryan Clark got sympathy, and he didn't even do that. He wasn't even there, and he got sympathy for it. This Black Lives Matter movement. People have asked me, Dre, how do you feel about the Black Lives Matter movement? Are you a follower of the Black Lives Matter movement? Do you support it? Black Lives Matter? What do you think about it? Here's the official answer. No. I do not support the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm going to tell you why. Now, do I believe Black Lives Matter in America? Absolutely, I do. The Black Lives Matter movement, this is what I asked this actually on one of my live streams, and my initial answer was I don't know if I follow the Black Lives movement or if I agree with it. I said I don't know, and here's the reason why I said I don't know, because I don't know what they're about. For me to follow a movement, I need to know, number one, who's in charge, number two, what's the goal, and number three, what's the plan. Because if I know those three things, then I can say, okay, yeah, I can mess with that. I like this leader. I can definitely get behind this person. All right, what's the goal? Okay, that's a goal that I want. I want to reach that goal too, so I can follow that. What's the plan? Okay, that plan makes sense. That's something that I think I can do. I'll get behind it. I need to know all three if I'm going to follow anything or anybody. With Black Lives Matter, I don't have any of those answers. I don't know who's in charge. I don't know what the goal is, and I don't know what the plan is. Now, while I was on my live stream saying this, someone went to the Black Lives Matter website, and they said, well, Dre, I'm going to look it up, and I'm going to tell you what they say their plan is. And they gave me some names of people who started it. I had never heard those names before. So these people who had started it, they were a much more quiet group of people. They're not like very prominent on social media, whomever they are. I don't know them, don't remember their names. But this person sent me a screenshot of the About page from the Black Lives Matter website that said, what is Black Lives Matter about? And the thing that they said, first thing that they said is that we came together to help destroy white supremacy. That's what they said. We want to destroy white supremacy. And that point alone tells me that I cannot get behind the Black Lives Matter movement. And let me explain to you why. And you're saying, what do you mean, Dre? You want to uphold white supremacy? You want to keep white supremacy as it is? No. What I'm saying is, I do not even believe in the concept of white supremacy. If you believe in white supremacy, that means you believe that a white person, or the white man, so to speak, is supreme to you. I don't believe that to be true. Therefore, I don't need to destroy it because I don't believe it exists, which means I don't need to get behind your movement. That's what your movement's about? Okay, your movement's about destroying something that I don't even believe exists. So why would I follow it? So that's my official response on the Black Lives Matter movement. If anybody knows, again, who's in charge, what's the goal, what's the plan, you can answer those three questions in 30 seconds or less. All right, that's how a movement is created. Movements can't not have and someone else left a comment and said, well, the Black Lives Matter movement is supposed to be like decentralized. It's not supposed to have any one face or any one name. That's the whole purpose of it, because they were saying that will help it spread more. And I guess it might be working. I mean, you got the NBA and NFL, and damn near every website I've been to in the last 2 weeks has some kind of Black Lives Matter post on their page telling people, hey, we support Black Lives Matter, read this and we can tell you how. Now, all bullshit, but y'all know the game. We already talked about that plenty of times. Everybody got to hustle, even business people. When it comes to, for example, by contrast, work on your game. Who's in charge? All right, everybody knows who's in charge of working on your game. If you didn't know, it's me, Dre Baldwin. What's the plan? The plan is what I tell you every single day. Discipline, show up every day, do the work. Confidence, put yourself out there. Mental toughness, continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there. Personal initiative, go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. You see how clear that plan is? I'm giving you the plan. I tell you the plan every single day. You know the plan, and I don't even have to say it. BLM's goals, what are their goals? We don't know. They're completely unclear. Or they said we want to destroy white supremacy. It makes no sense to me. If that's the goal, I'm out. Oh, you say, well, what goal is, well, black people shouldn't die for no reason, or black people shouldn't be racist against black people. Maybe you think that's the reason that Black Lives Matter exists. I say, okay, let's say that was the reason that they exist. Here's my question to that. Who's the enemy? Who are you fighting against with that, if that's your cause? Who is out there? I haven't heard a single person say, hey, black people should be dying for no reason. I never heard a police officer or anyone from any police department or any governmental unit say, hey, we want to kill unarmed black people and just do it systemically and do it in some type of strategy. I've never heard anybody say that. So there's no enemy to fight against. There's no police officer who wakes up and goes to work every day and says, hey, I want to find a black person that I can kill. Now, is it possible that there's some racist cop out there who doesn't like black people and is looking for any reason to start a problem? Sure. But are there racist black people looking to start problems with whoever they come across? Absolutely there are. Are there assholes out there in life? Yes, there are, and they come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. However, we cannot say just because something has happened a couple times, again, when we're done with our emotions and we can look at things rationally, we can't say just because something has happened a couple times and one person looks like this, another person looks like this, that we can just say, well, it's happening all the time, or they're doing this, or they're hunting us, or all these things that people like to say over and over again. These things are not actually like that. So when you say the fight is against black people dying in the street and things like that, who is the enemy? If you cannot clearly identify your enemy, then it's really hard to get a movement going, because who you're fighting against. This is the part that I don't understand. Even I'm recording this in the summer of 2020. When is this? Who is the enemy? Who's against any of this? Who's against anything that's going on right now? I don't think that people are against it. I think there are people who may be kind of annoyed, people who are like, well, what exactly is the goal? People who are asking, what is the plan? All right, I'm in that group. What's the goal? What's the plan? Who's the leader? Where is this going? I'm not against it though. I mean, if you want to make noise, go ahead and make noise. As long as you're not disrupting my sleep, it's all good for you to make noise. The thing is, nobody's against black people. Nobody said black people should die for no reason. Nobody said the cops should kill black people. So there's no enemy here. There's no clear enemy. Donald Trump didn't say that. The police don't say that. I haven't heard anybody say that. And if they do believe it, they haven't said it out loud, and they probably haven't executed on it. Who's the work on your game enemy? By contrast, maybe your enemy is the fact that you don't have the resources, or maybe you don't have the information. Maybe you don't have the advantages that other people have. Some people may have even counted you out, but you're going to take that same energy of people counting you out, not believing in you, turn it around and use that energy to create your own success. That could be the enemy. The enemy doesn't have to be a person. Doesn't have to be something specifically that someone did. It could just be a concept that you want to make sure you don't allow that concept to slow you down or hold you back. So if anything, if Black Lives Matter wanted to create an enemy that really made sense, they should say our enemy is looking at ourselves as victims. Now that I can get behind. If Black Lives Matter said we're gonna start looking at ourselves as victims and start empowering ourselves and stop blaming things on the government or blaming things on white this or white that or this system or that system, and we're gonna do what we need to do so we don't get into the system in the first place from the ground up, that I can get behind. Now, am I saying that those things don't exist and I'm saying that they're not problems? No, I'm not saying that. This is multidimensional thinking. Again, I can say that I understand something. I can say that something makes sense. I could even like something, but I can also criticize it and say, well, look, I get this part, but I don't get that part. This part makes sense, but I'm not good with that part. I fuck with this part over here, but I don't fuck with this part over there. This is multidimensional thinking. Now, a lot of people are not capable of this with things that they are emotionally invested in. When people are emotionally invested in things, they're like, well, you got to go with 100% of what we're doing, or you can't go with any of what we're doing. Well, I don't think that way. And unfortunately, here's our problem as black people, especially in our culture. I posted this on social media as well. Our culture is the only one where we elect intellectually unqualified people to be our leaders, such as athletes and musicians. Just because you can put words together and make a song that people dance to, and you can dunk a basketball or shoot a three-pointer, does not mean you should be leading any type of social activism cause. Because what do you have to offer a conversation? What plan do you have? What leadership skills or tools do you possess? Usually the answer is none, none, and none. But these are our leaders because in our culture we raise each other to believe that this is the person that we should follow. This is the person that should be our leader. This is the person who has all the answers when they have none. They don't even have a plan. How do you gonna have answers? You don't even have a plan. Anyway, let's move on to point number 4 and get to a call to action. Now that I have stated my case here clearly, hopefully. Call to action is you must learn to see things from different angles. Be able to say that I like this thing and I'm with this thing, but at the same time, let me be critical of it. Hey, I hope that you are successful. I hope this thing works out. I hope you reach the end goal, but at the same time, I do not agree with your methods. I don't agree with your strategy. I don't think you have a plan. I don't think you are leading properly. And for somebody to be able to take that, all right, somebody should be able to say to you, I'm talking to you right now personally, hey, I like what you're doing. I like what you got going on, and I hope you are successful. But at the same time, I want to question some of the things that you're doing. I want to question some of your methods, and I think there are some ways that this could be done better. And you should be able to accept that. A multi-dimensional thinker can take that. A two-dimensional or one-dimensional thinker can't handle that because they say something like, "Oh, you're hating on me." As I told y'all a few episodes back, how to deal with bullies in life. What episode was that? Let me find it. Masterclass number 1536. When I posted, I believe it was on my Instagram story, I posted that this NBA player named Steven Jackson, who was a friend of George Floyd, I said this guy doesn't really have a plan. He doesn't really have any direction. He's just making a whole lot of noise and people are following him because they don't want to say anything to him. And when he saw it, for whatever reason he saw it, and he said, "Oh, you're hating on me." He sent me a message telling me that I was hating on him. And I'm like, dude, you like 40 something years old talking about somebody's hating on you just because they said that you don't have a strategy when you actually don't. That's not hating. That's just pointing out what actually is real. And a good multi-dimensional thinker would have said, well, okay, well, tell me what strategies you have. Or maybe if he didn't want to hear that, he could have went to somebody else and said, hey, maybe I don't have a strategy. Or maybe this person's not hating. Maybe they're just saying what they're saying. Let me examine this and see if it even makes sense. But the challenge is when all you're hearing all day is people telling you how great you are, and then somebody says something like what I said, which was critical, in a way. I wasn't like being negative towards him. I just said the guy doesn't have a plan, which he doesn't. And he was ready to call me a hater because, again, all he's hearing is the exact opposite. And that I can't follow. I can't follow people who think like that. I can't follow people who don't think in that way. People who are falling into these victim mentalities or the all or nothing dogma of accept everything that I say or you're out. This idiocy is only performed by people who don't think. And unfortunately, to any of you who's not a black American, I want y'all to understand that these people do not represent us. I've said that before. They do not represent us. They do not represent our culture. They do not represent black Americans as a whole. They do not speak for us. I know they're famous. I know they're prominent. I know they're the faces that you see most often, but they are not representative of what we have. Unfortunately, in our culture, we promote these people because we have a lot of people who don't think in our culture, unfortunately, and this is just what it is. We got a lot of people who do think also. Let me be clear. A lot of people who do think. Unfortunately, that some of the biggest, most prominent voices are people who do not think critically. I'm not saying they don't think at all. They don't think critically. I think LeBron James is a great athlete. I do not think he is equipped to be a social activist. I don't think he's equipped to lead something like this. He's equipped to lead a basketball team. He's not equipped to lead this because he is a two-dimensional thinker. I think his ideas are quite shallow. And I'm only using LeBron as an example, but there are a whole lot of other athletes who are under that same umbrella who fit the exact same thing. I'm just using him because you know who he is. But there's a whole bunch of others who fit the exact same description that I just did. And unfortunately, there are a whole bunch of people who are impressionable enough they're going to follow everything that he says. So when he says something shallow or something that's not well thought out, it becomes the dogma of a large group of people because the guy has a million or so followers online, and then we just get deeper into the hole going in the wrong direction. I hope that I'm wrong about some of these things. I hope that these ill-equipped leaders become equipped leaders along the way, learning through trial and error and helping bring people to where they need to go. Personally, I can only do my part with who I can reach, and I'm going to continue to do that part, but I'm also at the same time, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. If that means I got to be critical of somebody, I'll say that. And if somebody happens to come across it and have a problem with it, then we'll have our engagement as we need to. But if you want to be a multidimensional thinker in life, understand you don't have to pick a side. You don't have to subscribe to dogma. You don't have to be all or nothing when you're unclear as to what somebody's about. If someone asks you to join a movement, that movement should be able to tell you who's in charge, what the goal is, and exactly what the plan is. And even if you've never heard of them before, you should be able to understand it in 30 seconds or less. If you can't, then they are unclear in what they're bringing to the table. And if you say that to them and they say that you're a negative or you're a hater or they try to ostracize you, they told you everything you need to know about them and you made the right decision by asking the question, you can leave them alone. Only immature fools cannot accept this level of communication and this level of thought. So check yourself and check the people you are following, check the people you consider to be leaders, and ask yourself what category they're in. Work on your game. Dre all day.